Hello, this is Teresa. I'm back with another tutorial for Dare to Be Artsy. I'll be showing you how I created these three little gift boxes using double-sided pattern paper from Dare to Be Artsy. So here's one example that I've already cut out. I just wanted to show you that overall on a 12 by 12 piece of paper that you can get two of them cut out of a single 12 by 12 piece of paper, and I'm choosing two different patterns, one which is more masculine because of all the little ball caps, and the second one has florals on it, and on the back side of each of those papers there is a different pattern. So depending on which side you prefer to be on the outside, you can make that choice. Like for example, this one has a cute gingham pattern, and I've already made a little paper bow that I'll decorate this one with. Also, with many of the papers, there are matching stamp sets, and although I didn't stamp anything today, you could stamp some flowers and die cut them out and decorate your bag with those, or even possibly fussy cut some of those out of this sheet instead. Now I've uploaded my image that I want to cut into Cricut Design Space. I'm using the iPad app. I'm just resizing the canvas, not the overall size of the image, and I'm going to duplicate it, and then I will have two, and then I'm going to manipulate them so I can control exactly where they're going to cut on the paper. So I'm not resizing these objects, I'm just merely rotating them and moving them around. And I will do that with the second one on the right hand side. So I'm just grabbing the corner that has the little symbol that looks like kind of like a circle with a little arrow. And once I've gotten them where I want it, I'm going to press on the second item until both are selected. Then I click on attach, which is in that first menu below. And when I send it over to the Cricut machine, now I can see on the mat exactly how this will print. Now, if for some reason I'm unhappy with it and I decided I did want to make a minor adjustment to this, you can go back to the canvas, which is that middle button, and then I'm going to unattach those two. So I just clicked on that button that said detach. And I'm going to move that piece on the right up. I'm going to reselect both items at the same time and then click attach again. Then I'm going to click on that little green button in the bottom corner, and now I'm seeing my preview of the mat. And I'm satisfied with this, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out on the machine, and I'll be back in just a moment. Now, before I did start the cutting process, I looked at the paper and thought about the orientation that they were going to cut, and this paper seems to be more directional than the other one I chose, so I'm turning this way deliberately so that I don't have flowers and stuff going sideways when this is cut out. So I think it'll be more obvious when I separate them from the mat, and as you can see, I turn the mat down on my surface and peel it away from the paper because that reduces the possibility that it's going to curl. Unfortunately, I did get a little bit of curl on the one on the right. Now I've cut the second set out of that other pattern paper, and now I could create two different boxes out of this. And even though I had this set to where it would score using a scoring tool on the Cricut machine, I did feel like I needed to go back over where that scoring happened and just kind of reinforce it a little bit. So I grabbed a clear ruler so I could see exactly where I was going, and I lined it up with the existing scoring mark and just reinforced that. This is totally optional. If you don't think you need to do this, you can skip this step, but I went ahead and did it just because I felt I was going to have a better time folding it and preparing it to glue together. And then I'll speed up the process because then it starts becoming kind of repetitive. So just line it up with the existing score lines, and sorry my head gets in the way a couple of times here while I'm doing that. And that's pretty much it for this. And the next part of this, I start folding all those places where I have the score marks so that it will be ready to glue together. And the last part, of course, is that little tab on that side. So that will be the part that I'll glue to the opposite side in a little bit so that I can create the box. This is not cut in such a way that you can just add glue to that tab and then fold the whole thing across and attach it while it's laying down. If it were a completely straight box, I would be able to get away with doing that, but in this case, it's just a little bit, it's not too much of a hassle to do this, so I'll put some liquid glue on that flap here in just a moment after I finish folding and using my bone folder to reinforce where I folded that so I get nice sharp creases on every place where it is intended to fold in. So now that I have that in place, like I said earlier, I'm going to take some liquid glue, I'm going to put it on that little tab sticking out, and then I'm going to pull the end of the box over like I'm showing you, and I will hold that in place for about a minute. It doesn't take very long for this glue to adhere, so you could use score tape if you prefer doing something like that instead of liquid tape, but I just prefer to use this, especially for this first one, so that I can have a little bit of wiggle room in adjusting it to line up. And so now that I've gotten that done, I'm going to work on the bottom. Now all the tabs are the same size except one, so I think that'll be pretty obvious which one that is. Unfortunately, get off the screen a little bit, hopefully not enough that you don't miss what I'm doing here. I'm holding my tape runner, my double-sided adhesive tape runner in my hand, and I'm just trying to find the best position to kind of put my hand in to apply just enough of that tape to attach that long flap on. So I add a tiny little bit on each of the short flaps on that one side that's closest to the short long flap, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to fold in those edges and make sure it's staying square. And then I'm going to bend in that shorter flap. I kind of decided that longer one was kind of getting in my way, so I tried to fold it so that it would be out of my way. And this may take a little experimentation just to figure out how you get the best leverage to do this. At least after you get the first part of it done, the rest of it is much easier. As you can see, I'm putting double-sided adhesive tape on the three sides of that long flap, just not at the top. And then once you fold that over, you can set it down on your surface and take some object, whether it's a tool like I'm using here, or just anything that's handy where you can press down on the inside of the box and make it stick. And this is the exact same process I will use on every single one of the boxes. Now I'm going to be using the A Gift for You stamp out of this stamp set. You've Got Mail, I believe, is what this one is called. And like I said earlier, all supplies will be linked below in the description box. I have two pieces of white cardstock, and one is cut to 1.5 inches wide. The other is 1 inch wide. And on the 1 inch wide strip, I'm going to stamp that sentiment right in the center. I will be trimming off the edges, so the thing I made sure of is just that they were wider than the width of the box in the front, because I will be trimming those off in a little bit. Now, on some of the pattern papers like this one, there is a decorative edge on it, and I'm going to take advantage of that in my design. I'm going to pull it off the mat, or at least pull off that end of it, and I'm going to trim off that striped edge that's at the border. And I'm going to then create a little more interest in the sentiment that I'm putting on this bag by attaching some of that border at the top and the bottom of that 1.5 inch strip. The reason I decided to do that instead of trying to glue it to the back of where I've already stamped is because it's a lot easier to do this if you have a wider strip of paper like I do, and then glue this pattern piece to both the top and the bottom, and then put the sentiment on the top, which you'll see me doing shortly. It'll make a lot more sense then. So now that I have this cut off, I'm just going to line it up roughly to make it the same length. It doesn't have to be perfect because the ends will get trimmed off like I said earlier. So I'm going to trim off 2 pieces that are roughly the same size. And then I will get out my liquid glue again, and I will add adhesive to the top of that 1.5 inch wide cardstock strip. And once I do that, I'll grab one of the pieces of that pattern paper strip. I'm going to place it near the top and just adjust it so that no white cardstock is showing from the very top. And I'll repeat this process on the other side. In this case, if I do need to trim some of that down because I don't like how it's looking, then I could still trim and make it a little bit more, not narrow in the width, but in the height. But as it turns out, this turned out to be, or at least I was pleased with how much was showing on each side, so I don't feel like I need any adjustments from that standpoint. I'm going to then add some glue to the back of my sentiment. I'm going to place that down on my prepared strip there. And once I do that, then I'm going to have to figure out how to cut the edges so that they match with the edge of the gift bag, because it is at an angle. So that is a little tricky, but I have a tip for you that I'm just about to show you. The whole thing to making this work is using a piece of temporary adhesive so that you can hold it in place while you're doing the next couple of steps. So I found my temporary adhesive and I just used enough to place it on the front of the card, not the card, but the bag, exactly where I want it to end up being after I trim off the edge. Then I'm going to get a pencil and I'm going to mark on each side right next to the bag so that I know where I need to glue, as well as, of course, cut off. So now I'm drawing those 2 lines. Sorry, my head gets in the way again. And now that I've done that, I can easily pull that off because it's just temporary adhesive on there. And I decided, instead of using my scissors, because I had a few layers of cardstock, to just get out my trimmer and make sure that I did it straight and not take a chance with the scissors. Now, one thing I did do at this point is, because when I drew that pencil line, it is sticking out a bit away from the edge, I trimmed it just on the inside on either side of the tab. So now you can see I have the angles cut that will match the edge of that bag I've already created. So now all I need to do is add adhesive, and then I'll stick that right on the front of my bag, and I can adjust it until it is in just the perfect position. And now that I have all 3 of the bags completed, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you again for spending time with me and watching this video. I hope you'll consider giving it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe. Until then, I hope you have a great week, and I dare you to get artsy.